So with that, I'm just quickly sharing my screen. Let me know once it's visible, Nitesh.
Yeah, it's visible for us.
Great, thanks a lot. So just to talk about FinTech, where we started in the month of May month, where it was really a vision where we wanted to set up a special interest group within the whole ecosystem. And idea was to bring together all stakeholders under one roof and set up multiple sets of initiatives and engagements with the larger theme of converge, connect, and collaborate. And again, when I talk about a brief past experience of setting up fintech initiatives, we have worked with multiple global organizations across various geographies. And these are again a couple of past fintech programs that Startup so has set up in the past 1 year. And again, a lot of your attendees already know Startup so and the team for setting up FinTech, which was India's largest fintech conference back in 2017, 18, and 19. We couldn't conduct in 2020 and 21 because of COVID. But briefly in 2019, we had close to 1,500 plus attendees, 3 different days, 3 stages, and 250 plus global speakers who have joined us for this session. And with that similar vision, we tried to set up, we are setting up FinTech Goa as an initiative where 55 plus different engagements are being set up, and a lot of you must have already attended a few of them in the recent past. Again, this is a quick glimpse of what we have achieved so far. And taking a step further, we realize that this is the right time when I talk about India FinTech opportunity. We have interacted with multiple stakeholders in the industry, and that's when we realized that this is the right time to open the doors for Indian FinTech opportunity for the global FinTechs who want to expand to India. And with that, the whole overall agenda is the operate a second cohort of the India Market Access Program, where the vision is to bring together 12 to 15 growth stage fintech companies who have set up relevant business, who have set up scalable businesses in their home country, and bring them to India and work with them for a 3-month long program. And when I talk about that 3-month long program, it's going to be a mix of customized sets of engagements where there are 2 major aspects which we are touching on. Number one is understanding the market, understanding the landscape, interacting with the regulators, understanding the taxation compliances, data compliances, and how to do that is definitely close door one-to-one interactions with right set of subject matter experts and industry leaders. And number 2 is getting a right set of partnerships access as well. So we are anyway we are planning to set up at least 15 plus B2B meetings for each and every cohort companies who will be joining us for. And again, it's completely an equity program, virtual program, and again, this completely opens the door to the Indian fintech ecosystem for all the startups who are joining. We are already live with the applications. We are close to closing the applications to the last week of November, and tentatively we are all set to launch the program by the first week of December and conclude it by the last week of March. And again, there are multiple sets of program benefits from an intense closed-door interactions with the right set of stakeholders, getting an industry access to the Indian fintech ecosystem, understanding the and building the right set of partnerships along with a specific set of technology credits, perks, discounts, and other benefits through this. We are fortunately supported by a lot of global partners. Even Open Coffee and Science are already supporting us for this program by virtue of opening up their APIs for this. And with that, just to talk a little bit further in terms of who we are in terms of as an organization, we specifically focus on 4 major verticals, that is enterprise, capital markets, and services. In the enterprise front, we operate multiple industry thematic accelerator programs, M&A engagements, innovation programs, and things like that. Hackathon, CVC programs, making sure that enterprise is equipped with connecting with the right set of startups in their industry domain. The capital front, we soon going to invest in early stage B2B tech companies, East Africa, On the markets front, we operate multiple market access programs across various geographies. So India FinTech Market Access Program being one of the many ones which we already operate. We operate other ones as well, where we help Indian companies to soft lend. In Canada, we help Canadian companies to come in soft lend. In India, there are a couple of bilateral programs across ASEAN region which we operate. On the services front, we have a couple of our own branded IP in terms of events and conferences and media content. This is a brief highlight in terms of our global network that we have right now. And with that, just to give you all a brief pause in terms of take a step back and just let us know if you have any specific questions about the program. We will just put down all your questions about the program on the chat window below, and we will take up towards the end of the session. And with that, I would like to welcome all our panelists out here, Mr. Arpit Ratan, Mr. Sanjeev Kumar, and Mr. Rajat Deshpande. Arpit is the co-founder at Scienzy. Rajat Deshpande is the co-founder CEO at Finbox, and Sanjeev Kumar is the founder and CEO at White. Hi, everyone. Welcome.
Hi, guys. How are you guys doing?
Great to see you all. And again, like all of you guys are amazing pioneers in terms of building fintech businesses and various building scalable verticals across fintech and regtech sector. So how about I would request all of you to like give a brief introduction about yourself, and also give me one specific theme in terms of what excites you all when I talk about fintech in India as an opportunity. Because again, I want to drive today's panel conversation more towards the next decade of fintech opportunities in India. So please give your brief introduction and select one theme which excites you. We can start with you, Rajat.
Hey, hi Sumit. Thank you so much for having me. Hi guys. Hi Arpit. Hi Sanjeev. And of course, I haven't met Nitesh, but yeah. Hey, hi. Thank you so much, guys, for having me. Quickly about me. I am Rajat, one of the 4 co-founders of Finbox. Finbox is full stack embedded finance, API and SDK platform, which enables any digital platform to offer financial services such as loans, buy now, pay later, credit lines, overdraft facilities, and a combination of these through APIs and software development kits. And we abstract out all the messiness of lending and the entire life cycle management of a borrower, and make it easy for for technical teams or product teams to really pick this up and build it into their own sort of own product super quickly. And in terms of the theme that I'm super excited about is maturing of the fintech ecosystem, and essentially quote unquote APIfication of a lot of functionality and relationships that were hitherto really difficult to forge, required a lot of deal making, contracting, access to specialized lenders and sort of to the inner circle of the lending community maybe. So basically all that coming out in standards and APIs that can become building blocks for the next generation of fintechs and make it easy for people to innovate on top. So I would say the infrastructure moment for the Indian fintech ecosystem is here. And we are part of the sort of story as well, small part of the story, but it's an exciting and interesting story as it sort of impacts a lot of different tech startups and platforms. Yeah.
Really amazing, and absolutely, when we talk about a lot of infrastructure play, like it has been clearly evident in terms of what government of India has also been doing in various. So, Sanjeev, Arpit, feel free to pick up the mic and go ahead.
Yeah, Sanjeev, you want to go ahead?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Arpit, and thanks, Sumit, for inviting. Hi, Rajat. I think it's great to see your efforts in helping the fintech ecosystem in India, Sumit, and kudos to what you are doing. In a very short time, I can see what you are doing in the Indian fintech ecosystem and inviting foreign startups also to join the journey. And Rajat kindly explained the opportunity that India presents, and it is definitely a wonderful time to be a part of it. To introduce myself, I think I'm running a fintech research company called Whiteside. In terms of me being active in the fintech space, it's been almost 6 years. The first 3 of which I was working with a UK-based fintech firm before moving back to India last year to join PwC fintech research team. So later last year, when COVID was at its peak, I gave into my adventurous side to quit PwC and launch my own venture, which we call Whiteside. And to borrow the trending phrase from the fintech world, we like to call ourselves as fintech intelligence as a service platform, which basically means we provide data-driven intelligence to help the ecosystem participants, such as startups, investors, to identify emerging trends, build thought leadership, or take strategic decisions like market expansion, the GTM strategy, collaboration playbook, etc. Now, coming to the other question that you posed, Sumit, the exciting theme about Indian fintech. So in my mind, at least, I feel the open banking and the open finance theme in India is probably the most exciting to me right now. And why I feel so is because open finance is a force multiplier theme, right? That will propel multiple segments across categories such as neobanking, digital lending, BNPL, and whatnot. And apart from that, what excites me even further is it will also propel the technology service providers. As Rajat mentioned, that we are in the infrastructure moment of finance in banking. Because open finance, if it has to realize its potential, then B2B fintechs across sectors like digital onboarding, data aggregation, risk management, loan origination, customer journey platforms, all of them have to come together to help not just the fintechs, but also the incumbents to join the journey of open banking and embedded finance. So that's my take on the emerging theme that excites me. Over to you, Arpit.
Okay, thanks, Sanjeev. And yeah, Sumit, I think great effort during COVID, organizing something so engaging over such a long period of time, keeping people engaged itself, I think is a big thing. And we've been part of a lot of these series of talks. And I think kudos to you guys that you've been able to maintain the same intensity and excitement across so many sessions and still maintain originality. And I mean, lovely work, guys. Just coming to us at Sciency, we are creating the largest fintech marketplace for customer journeys, and we offer APIs and workflows as tools for you to build any customer journey, which can be at acquisition, onboarding, and post-onboarding servicing. As we build it out, I think we are seeing a lot of trends across the market, and especially because we are also doing some work outside India, we are able to do this great comparison. And I think I completely resonate with both Sanjeev and earlier Rajat that India is in a unique position because we have built great infrastructure, and we don't see that in other countries. And in India, every fintech I think has a large more opportunity because a lot of your tools are already available on day one. Yes, execution is a challenge, it always is, but at least the availability of the tool is not missing, which is in a lot of other countries. And a lot of fintechs struggle to build it grounds up. So in India, yes, it will be about execution, nothing from that. Even with the infrastructure, there will be a lot of hard work everyone will have to do. But because we are in such a unique position where whether it's lending APIs, whether it's payment APIs, whether it's insurance APIs, whether it's collection, whatever you want in a fintech, there is not any dearth of that stack available across. And I think all the best to everyone who's trying to build in India. We are going to be the fastest growing fintech market without a doubt. Evidence of that is the amount of funding you're getting, amount of traction we are seeing on platforms. And this trend will, I think, continue to emerge because we have a very supportive government, which is not backing down even when there is risk. And there's so much news you keep hearing that this is not right with fintech, that is not right with fintech. But all kudos to our regulator, all kudos to our government who continues to back it and are not taking those knee-jerk reaction and suddenly banning something, which I think used to happen, years ago. So kudos to the government for also backing the entire startup ecosystem and fintech and understanding their pain points. Great market to be in, guys.
That's really amazing. Great. Thank you so much, Arpit, and all of the panelists. So briefly, as you mentioned, Arpit, I mean, India as a domain has already, like Indian government has already came up with groundbreaking policies, initiatives to support the whole tech at scale in India. And when I talk about, it has clearly been evident with our statistics in terms of UPI crossing 4 billion plus transactions recently, or the Indian FinTech adoption rate reaching to a height of 87% as such. And again, like Indian government has already been come up with new videos like account aggregator, digital India, others. But again, I would like to take up a quick question with Sanjeev and understand your perspective in terms of the regulatory challenges. So again, in the past decade, the regulators have tried their best to support the ecosystem. And still, as Arpit mentioned, there are always complaints and issues which the ecosystem always goes to the regulator. So what are the key challenges the regulators should answer when it comes to scaling up a fintech startup in India in the next 3 to 4 years?
Well, I think I echo Arpit's sentiment in terms of if you look at regulators in India specifically, they have done a great deal to create an environment where fintechs can flourish. And India is probably the only country where the regulators and governments are involved, not just in policy making, but also developing a diverse and public digital infrastructure, along with providing guidance on innovative business models, right? So for example, what's happening in the account aggregator space, how Sahmati is not just helping the account aggregator and the associated ecosystem to use the infrastructure, but also to test out the business models that can work in the geography is phenomenal. And that will go a long way in setting up the scale up policies for the fintechs, which I feel is very important. Along with that, I think the synergy between the regulatory policies and the infrastructure has actually created a level playing field for both fintechs as well as banks. So in many parts of the world, especially if you look at UK, where the concentration of financial industry is towards the big four or big five banks, India is not like that, right? So India is a very diverse market. If you look at the banking industry itself, there are quite a few players who are there, and not a single player or not a couple of players control the whole market. So regulators have actually balanced the innovation as well as consumer protection pretty nicely in India. In terms of challenges or next set of wish lists, what we can expect from regulatory side, or probably we can call it regulatory intervention that may help the sector grow in the future, would be around some of the segments which actually need active or direct regulatory oversight. So some of these sectors which are growing very quickly and may actually get some help from regulators on clarity on policies are like BNPL and neo-banking. And specifically in neo-banking, if you look at it, almost all the emerging markets have some policy about digital banking licenses. And that's something that is that must be on the regulators' radar for quite some time now. And we are hoping that there will be some clarity if there can be some, even if a restricted license can be offered, where a bank can be set up from scratch digitally without actually needing to set up a branch. So that's something that I think will help the ecosystem in a big way. Also, some regulatory clarity on the crypto space can be very helpful, because the whole crypto segment is blooming, and inside India as well as outside. So that's another segment where some clarity is awaited for quite some time. And apart from those, I think my personal wish list is actually a further digitization of the onboarding process of SMEs and micro SMEs specifically, because this was my first-hand experience when we were setting up Whiteside. we felt the pain of operating in bank account, a corporate bank account in India hasn't gone away, right? So at the time of COVID, we had founders in 3 different cities, and we had to open a bank account, and we still needed wet signatures, and you can imagine how it would be done. So especially for a company like ours, where we have a majority of our revenues coming in foreign currency from our clients outside India, it was a nightmarish experience of not being able to bill clients in the initial few months. And even today, the inward remittance for corporate accounts has a lot of room for improvement, where regulators can definitely have a lot of say on how they want to control the movement of money, as well as facilitate innovation and do not block the payments for micro and small medium enterprises. So those are some of my personal view on where the regulatory intervention can go a long way in helping the ecosystem.
Right. And again, those are really amazing points, Sanjeev. Just to taking up further conversation, like Rajat, you mentioned a lot of interest is around like API partnerships as well. And then when I talk about like API and picking up a point from Sanjeev, that is open banking, it is a larger segment around embedded finance, which India has already been thriving and coming up with various sets of products, initiatives, startups coming up in this domain. So again, when I talk about embedded finance, it's the next stage of evolution in fintech, and it is expected to dominate the industry in the next decade. So if you could share your views around that domain, Rajat, that would be amazing.
Cool. So yeah, that's like a very question with a very large surface area answer. But yeah, I'll sort of try to put that in sort of concise words. One is, of course, I am super excited about embedded finance, and the cool part is that most people are. And embedded finance, in a way, sort of sits. It's one of those synergistic phenomena that sort of come along only once in a while. Basically, it enables platforms to monetize or enable their customers in using financial services, maybe for B2B e-commerce platforms to enable more purchases, or basically for sort of large aggregators of users to monetize the user base, etc. But at the same time, it enables the lenders to really create very pinpointed and targeted programs, credit programs. So for example, right now, if a lender wanted only to lend to pharmacies, right, there would not be any way to do it currently, right? If you go open market digitally, it's just hard to get, say, a group of pharmacies, right? Embedded finance enables that, and it brings good quality borrowers at a reasonable customer acquisition cost through the funnel, and enables great business, and it creates synergies for both the platforms, or where the borrowers are, and the lenders who are creating tailored programs. And this is all possible because of the connectors, the APIs, and a multitude of APIs, from KYC to basically compliant loan journeys, to credit decisioning, underwriting, data connectors, to decision engine scorecards, and then sort of the loan management system and the dispersal API. So a bunch of these things sort of work together to actually enable the embedded finance use case. It's all API driven, and right now there are so many different use cases being experimented with, and some of them have started to scale. It's crazy what the potential is of this, right? So tailored products to platforms, secured, unsecured loans, bunch of different innovative repayment periods on credit products. All of these things are already a reality in India, and this is all driven by the building blocks that are available through the API and SDK platforms. So it's an exciting time, and it's all it's something that we have scratched the surface of at this point, and we're waiting for it to really explode, and sort of the innovation to go to the next level. And different parts of the tech ecosystem really become really drive that innovation, not only the erstwhile fintechs, but platforms where who didn't think themselves as fintechs earlier can drive all those credit product innovation. So yeah, overall an exciting time. I hope I captured some of the excitement and some of what is happening in the ecosystem, but absolutely the best time to be part of this story right now. Yeah.
That's great, Rajat. I think I'm assuming there was some issue with my audio. I hope it's a little better right now. So just to move ahead further with the conversation, we discussed about a lot of various aspects from a regulatory standpoint and embedded finance standpoint. And when I specifically talk about embedded finance, Arpit, I want to take your views on one specific point. That is partnerships. Embedded finance is driven by partnerships, and largely, if we notice, fintech as an ecosystem is driven by partnerships. We have seen various sets of partnerships in terms of like lending, payments, buy now, pay later, neo banking solutions, SME banking, in every aspect. And again, you can name all the major key players who have built amazing partnerships. I want to understand your views. How do you see the next decade is going to impact all different stakeholders like banks, startups, SME, regulators, technology providers, and when it comes to like this whole partnership aspect of?
Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right, and resonating to what Rajat said. We are very, very early in this right now. They will slowly fade away. And why I say that is because eventually partnership existed to test out models which are very new. Things were not as open as they were. And in a way, strategic partnerships are restricting the ability of both partners to engage. So for example, if an ICICI does an exclusive deal with an Amazon, it's a great strategic partnership for both. But eventually that means that Amazon only offers ICICI card, and ICICI has this exclusive card relationship with only Amazon. But if you look to what's happening on the tail, especially with players like M2P, Zeta, and these guys, they've been able to create a model where you'll be able to do partnerships across the ecosystem. So single players, multiple banks, and single bank, multiple players. So as this, I think, becomes more mainstream, you will see that, yes, there will be some business partnerships which will remain. But as people like Rajat, these guys make that tech so easy for the financial institutions, I don't think strategic partnerships, which are especially exclusive in nature, will exist because they are really restricting business. You will have more technologies like the ones Rajat are doing across different financial products, which will be easily available off a shelf for someone to embed, integrate, and go live. And which means that instead of doing like partnerships, people would buy this off the shelf products or integrate off the shelf products, and will have ability to do this across different banks versus doing like a strategic partnership with all banks. One clear trend I see, the way we saw, and I think was a very early example of Bank Bazaar when they started, that very few banks on their platform, but as they started scaling, any bank which is not on them was actually losing out. Of course, they didn't build the whole end-to-end funnel, but the companies like Rajat is doing that today, right? And once the market starts kind of increasing, anyone who is exclusive will eventually lose out because the platforms will not want to tie up to that exclusivity. So eventually, I think it will become more open. It will become kind of open for all platforms, and exclusivity may be limited, or exclusive partnerships may be limited to few strategic deals across the spectrums.
That's a quite an unique take. Rajat, do you want to share some aspect in terms of what you exactly are building when it comes to open banking, open finance? And again, if you could give your views in terms of how the partnerships aspect of the whole fintech ecosystem can shape up in the next couple of years.
Hey, hi Sumit.
Yes.
Hey,
Was I on?
Hey, I had a delivery person delivering something, so I sort of got up and maybe missed your question. Could you please repeat? Apologies for that.
So we discussed with Arpit in terms of a lot of interesting partnerships which FinTechs has been building. And again, when we talk about an open finance sort of an ecosystem which has already been shaped up in an Indian context. If you could share some of your learnings in terms of how the partnerships has evolved in the past few years and what's the next decade from your perspective, it should be.
Right. So yeah, absolutely. So one thing is that as Arpit said, nothing in what we do is exclusive. It is only technology partnership. It is sort of understanding what we are doing and sort of really solving problems in a way that enables others to then leverage those things to whatever sort of API or an SDK that gets created. Other people can sort of go on and use that. And I think we've seen broader maturation of the fintech ecosystem. Just to kind of reiterate what Arpit has been saying in the lending space specifically, right? Uh, there is really no competition between two fintechs. The competition really is with the NPA or the default or the delinquency that really causes the losses. There is practically infinite demand for credit. If you can get your system right, you will definitely have a large enough business. And you have to find your sort of sweet spot in terms of what you really want to do, and how you want to sort of work in what role do you want to play in the fintech ecosystem. And some of our partnerships have been fairly diverse. We've worked with lenders on API platforms. We've worked with digital platforms to enable credit. We've worked across term loans. We've worked across buy now pay later, which remains an interesting area of our work. So these are some areas that we've been working on. And then of course there is intelligence that we work very, very deeply on. So what should be the affordability of a customer? How do you assess a customer? What sort of loan product should you or should you not provide? How do you manage life cycle of a person, all through sort of machine learning and intelligence? And I think a lot of it comes through collaboration, right? Ultimately data and behavior is sitting in silos, and if we weren't able to drive collaboration, none of the fintech ecosystem players would have benefited from from creation of these best practices, these sort of machine learning tools to really build a large and scalable business. So I think it's all about collaboration as we move forward, figuring out where we can collaborate, and if there are certain areas that you can't, you sort of isolate them through your business model and see where you can work together. Because see, in the end, it's all about creating financial services for people who are super starved of who are super starved and sort of underserved, and to find out crucial and smart ways to reach them and sort of reduce cost, etc. So my point is, in some sense, the entire ecosystem has matured. Earlier, I would say the openness in terms of fintechs discussing what they were doing, how to collaborate, etc., was not there as much. Now it has increased a lot. We have also increased a lot of sort of openness in our platform. We have there is self sign up for a lot of the APIs that people sort of used to go through our sales reps and guys to sort of get access to. So I think a lot of that has changed. People can just work with us without even talking to us in some sense. Yeah. So that's how that's the future in my sense.
Absolutely. And again, both of you, those are quite some amazing key points. And what I take out of those key points is the whole ecosystem has evolved across three steps, from competition to cooperation to collaboration. And like we are now moving beyond collaboration and building partnerships, as you mentioned, where people that actually do not need to talk to talk to you and like just start consuming your APIs and be your customer. It's quite an amazing ecosystem that has been built. And just I want to drive a bit further into the conversation with Sanjeev. I want to take your key understanding when it comes to the funding pipeline in India. We see there is a lot of, and when I talk about a lot, it's actually a ton of money which has been poured in the Indian startup ecosystem in the past 10 to 11 months of 2021. We have seen 34 unicorns which has come up in India, and the amazing part is 10 of those are fintechs. So, Sanjeev, what's your take in terms of what do you see the whole funding pipeline evolving in the next decade, and what exactly are from an investor's perspective, what are we seeing?
So, as you said, the funding volumes and values that we are witnessing is pretty crazy. And without using the B word, I must say that we are living in times where too much cheap capital is chasing too few innovative trends. And a certain set of FOMO has already crept in terms of investors not, trying to lose on something which is trending and emerging. So because you have asked me about the funding pipeline and how it will evolve over the next decade. So in order to answer that question, I probably like to refer to the funding that we have seen from the corporate venture capital rather than the venture capital, because they tend to be a little long term and moderate to long term. So if you look at the corporate investments that has happened in India, FinTech specifically, some of the names that come to mind are Google investing in Open, which is a SME neo-banking play, Amazon investing in Small Case, which is a democratizing investment play, Salesforce investing in Reseau, which is again, their Reseau is doing quite a lot of things. It's not just payment processor company anymore. But what they are doing is very important. The segment that they are trying to target is micro SMEs, is a very important segment, not just for FinTech, but also for the economy overall. And then the latest investment that Stripe made in Reco and Clear. All these corporate venture investment, if you look at it, I personally have a thesis that Indian FinTech investment will have a 4D framework. So what I call this 4D framework, and I'm borrowing from a wonderful article that Matt Harris from Bain Capital just wrote a couple of days back, where he talks about three trends in terms of future of money or future of FinTech. So the first trend is definitely what has played out in most of the countries, and it is now playing out in India, which is about digital banking. From analog to digital is what he calls it. So I feel, the digital banking or neo banking trend, it doesn't just mean that the neo banks and the digital banks will attract funding. It also means the enabling technology players like card issuing platforms, digital onboarding platforms, or API platforms, which will help them connect with a sponsor bank, will also come into the play. And that is what we are seeing with Zeta and N2P raising massive amounts of funding to fuel their growth. So that is one. The second D is about distribution-centric propositions, right? So that is what I like to call embedded finance as distribution-centric propositions, where a company which has already amassed millions of customers, they use their power to distribute other products. The segment is already booming across the planet with another associated trend, which is banking as a service, risk management as a service, compliance as a service. All of them are coming together to propel the embedded banking or embedded finance proposition. The third trend, which I feel is a little bit unique to India, is democratization of finance, which I would like to call it building for Bharat, not just for India. And that is where players with credit propositions, where they can expand their lending proposition to underserved as well as unhappily served customers, can stand to gain in a big way. And the fourth is more about the decentralized finance, which is more like a 20, 30 years game rather than 5 to 10 years, which is playing out in the developed markets right now, which will obviously come to India at some point in time. And given the leapfrog economy characteristics that India has, I feel the decentralized finance will definitely emerge as something big in the next 5 to 10 years time horizon.
Those are really amazing points, which you, from a DeFi standpoint, again, we are already seeing a lot of early stage products in India and a lot of growth stage partnerships which are already happening in other countries. And we think through this program, that's the whole idea of bringing such set of innovations to an Indian geography and introducing all of these innovations to even an Indian corporate, Indian regulators, and Indian key stakeholders who are driving such kind of innovations, and then pick it up from there. So again, I want to take the mic to Arpit and understand the field perspective that historically the banks have been a regional and technology companies have been global. So, and financial service as a business is highly regulated one, and that we have already seen with a lot of regulations in India when it comes to each and every segment. So what do you think? What do you think is the future of fintechs? Are they going to follow a trajectory of banks or the technology companies?
Yeah, hi. So no, I think that's a very relevant question. But to be honest, Italy and as I think things which are happening within fintech, and we're trying to compare them to become either banks or let's say consumer tech. And I think was very well happening with sort of fintech is it's creating its own category because of the amount of financial innovation that is happening. Of course, yes, some of these fintechs like a Bharat Pay will end up becoming a bank. Some of I doubt any of the fintech will become a technology company. I don't see at least personally that trend emerging. But yes, like a lot of fintechs, neobanks, their eventual goal is to become banks, and that will happen. But you will see emergence of a lot of enablers, marketplaces, which will be creating their own categorization and will be more akin to a tech company, but they will have their own category actually in future. And there is a lot of trend of Web 3.0, which will eventually affect fintech, which is neither bank, neither tech. It is a whole new world. So I mean, yeah, I know it's a very longish answer for the question, but eventually there are companies which will get licenses, which will become regulated more, and they'll want more regulated. But we do clearly see, and the same with crypto, that they're now creating a new category, unlike before where regulation was or licensing was necessary because they were trying to become mainstream with banks. Because of the advent of Web 3.0, cryptos no longer need to become that mainstream. They in fact have created their own market, which is DeFi, which is existing outside of the banking structure, and will define a lot of the future innovations which are to come, and they will create their own category. So I think very exciting time. I think as someone who's been in fintech, even I can't predict. I find it very difficult to predict how it's going. But yeah, I do see some becoming banks, but you will see a lot of new categories emerging, which is super exciting.
Great, great. And those are really amazing points, Arpit. And again, we are seeing from an other geographical perspective, there are a lot of challenger banks which have come up there. They are just like taking up as an operating license and running bank accounts on other traditional banking ecosystems itself. And all they are trying to do is build better service and build a better offering to their customer segment and in the right way as well, which has already been happening in other geographies. And soon we are also seeing that set of an evolution from an Indian context. So with that, I have like one specific last question to ask all our panelists, and that's a very open question. That if you were to restart building a fintech startup in India right now towards the end of 2021, which segment or what product would it be and why? And feel free, all three of you can pick up the mic on that.
Interesting question, Sumit. So
you want to go ahead?
Yeah, absolutely. So one thing is I would build embedded finance, and I know a lot of people might be saying कि यार ये तो गलत बात है, right? But I'll tell you why. So this is something that we wanted to build in 2017. I don't know if Zone guys of course know that we were incubated by Axis Bank at Axis Bank Thought Factory, and we have this video, and at some point we will sort of release that video where we said ki all this embedded finance hoga. We didn't use that word embedded finance, but there's like a super cool video that we did for the pitch, and we tied up with this player called Bivo, which was a POS player, and the idea was for us to actually give loans on the POS. This is 2017. No APIs really existed. So we didn't know, of course, like startups are always enthusiastic and they sort of dive headfirst into things without thinking ki kya hoga, right? So we did. And we tried to build embedded finance, and this is 2017. And then suddenly Bivo shut down. Then suddenly we realized there were no APIs. There was no credit decision API. There was nothing at, on the side of the banks that could enable us to build this, right? I think piece by piece we have built, parts of the entire pipe. And of course, other guys have also built, lots of the parts of the pipe. And frankly, now is the time where innovation can go crazy. There's a lot of fintech talent which has moved around between startups. Everybody understands fintech to a level that can enable them to really start experimenting. APIs are here. There are players like us, but then there are other players who sort of like Sciencey, etc. There are players who are sort of really doing fintech education. Players like you, players like Whiteside. There's other guys as well we talk to regularly, right? So there is infrastructure, there is willingness, there is talent and education all coming together to to a point in where real magic can happen, right? And embedded finance essentially brings together everybody into a tech play, and it's super exciting for us to see what people can do, what people can build using APIs that we sort of are building. And as product people, that is our ultimate actualization, right? If people sort of run with it and build interesting stuff on top of the stuff that we've built. So super exciting time, and we're really excited about where we are. And if I had to build stuff again, maybe with some fine tuning and tweaks, and maybe some learnings, I would still build embedded finance infrastructure for India, and now with Southeast Asia maybe as well, but India mostly.
That's a quite an Sanjeev, Arpit, you might want to pick up.
Yeah. So
Go ahead, Sanjeev. Yeah, no, go ahead.
Okay, so I'll probably talk about something new that I came across a couple of months back, and I found it very cool. I'm not sure whether somebody is doing it in this part of the world. So basically, the idea is of let's say, a revenue-based financing platform for SaaS companies. So there's a company called Pipe in the US, and what they're doing, they're basically providing cash advance to startups who have subscription-based revenue streams. And why I feel this is a wonderful time to build something like that in India, because we are seeing the Indian SaaS landscape has witnessed a transformational growth in the last few years, and specifically with the successful exits of companies like Zoho or Freshworks. I mean, they have proven their potential. It's no more just a pipe dream that you will raise money and you will build a business that will be scalable. They have actually shown that it's a profitable business that can actually expand across multiple countries. So the whole idea is to, let's say, build a company which will finance the revenue stream of all the tech companies wherever they offer a subscription revenue stream. And if you look at the trend that is emerging in India, specifically in terms of the SaaS landscape, the value creation from the SaaS technology companies is immense, and the revenues are predictable. Particularly the success of Zoho and Freshworks, as I mentioned, has shown that the Indian companies can be extremely capital efficient and they can expand globally. And specifically in fintech, also my thesis is, as both Rajat and Arpit mentioned, and both of them are actually driving a company like this, which will act as an enabler for the digital transformation of the economy. I feel Indian fintech will produce its, I mean, you mentioned a couple of names as unicorns in 2021 in fintech, and most of the names that you mentioned, they're like consumer fintech or SME fintech. But we haven't had a fintech unicorn, which is a technology provider. Probably only the only exception that comes to mind is Vita. Almost everyone is a consumer fintech or a SME fintech. But at the end of this decade, my bet is the next set of unicorns will be similar to foreign counterparts like Plaid, Tink, Rapid, Currency Cloud, Railsbank, Marqeta, Encino, Thought Machine, Mambu. All these guys, I mean, we need to have a counterpart of them from India, right? Otherwise, India with all its tech talent will not do justice if we can't produce a tech unicorn in fintech, right? So my whole premise is building something like a subscription revenue financing platform that can piggyback the growth trajectory of such tech startups in fintech will be pretty cool.
that was a really amazing like segment which you selected, Sandeep. And again, there is one specific player in India who is already doing revenue-based financing, but again, its challenges, they are not currently targeting the SaaS-based subscription, but they are looking currently towards an e-commerce based where there is consistent digital payments which are coming. And it's quite that's correctly which you pointed out that India actually needs a tech-based unicorn in the. Arpit, over to you in terms of what segment would you like restart building a fintech company and why?
I mean, what I would love to do is build a fintech in the Web 3.0, whether it is to do with crypto, DeFi, NFT. The challenge is I don't understand any one of them well enough. So, but I definitely see that there is a lot of future, and as Sanjeev rightly said, that maybe it's 20 years down the line, but I see that as a very, very exciting space. But yeah, I don't understand it well enough to build it. But what I do understand, and what I think Sanjeev was mentioning, that eventually there are going to be a lot of fintechs in India. That is extremely clear, and most of them are going to be tech companies or digital companies. And so eventually there'll be enablers, there will be technology providers who will enable this fintech. So if I was redoing a fintech from scratch, and which we are doing in Sciency, there are so many problems which are not solved for customers. And even if you look today, yes, it's very easy to get a loan or to make a payment, but if you go through a lot of Google reviews, which we do very regularly, a lot of problems people have is on servicing, of whether if there is a payment fraud, the whole process with the bank is very, very difficult. If there is a miss in the loan, the whole process is very difficult. So the whole customer servicing part is a really painful process and remains today, because of course I think a lot of focus on innovation has been acquisition and onboarding, and literally post onboarding the customer innovation is very, very less. So I think there's just so much which is to be done. I understand this space of enabler better than building a business or a consumer business or a SME business much better. And therefore, if I were to do, I would do what we are kind of now doing, is to build a complete marketplace for customer journeys, which will enable people to onboard, which I think we were doing for the last 5 years. But the future we are seeing for us is also in acquisition and post onboarding servicing, which are a lot of those journeys are actually non-digital. And as Sanjeev was mentioning, right, if you have to do remittance today, it's a very painful process. So onboarding is simplified across, but there is just so many pain points throughout customer journey which still need to be simplified further. And I mean, what we're trying to do at Sciency is build the largest marketplace to give you the tools to build it, and then eventually each business can decide how they want to build their customer journey, which is always unique. But we want to give all the tools possible. So if you want to build, let's say, a real-time remittance, we should have the tools to do it. How you want to build that UI UX, that should be up to that fintech.
That's quite an amazing domain which you selected, and again, a lot of key insights which came out of today's discussion from various standpoints. And when we understand the Indian fintech landscape, a lot has been happened in past 1 decade to actually like discuss within an hour-long panel, and a lot of opportunity gaps which are still yet to be answered, which which again the time is pretty much will be short if we consistently come up with various themes to cover up. But again, considering it's a Diwali week, and I would not want to take up much of the attendees' time, I would like to open the floor for all the questions which all of the attendees have, majorly on the two sides. One is any sort of questions for the panelists which you have. Please mention it, either unmute yourself or mention it on the chat window below. And second is, if you have any specific questions for the India Market FinTech program, where we are again, just to quickly mention once again, we are helping close to 12 to 15 fintechs and helping them come in soft land here in India and help them build partnerships and make them understand the whole India fintech market. So opening the floor go to the questions from the audience. Seeing, I guess, one specific question which is coming in on my personal channel, that is there a bubble in fintech? That's a very amazing question. Like when I talk about bubble in fintech, that's a pretty much. I was reading a couple of articles. There was a couple of panel discussions as well in other recent geographical in other conferences in other regions. And bubble in fintech has been discussed since past 3 to 4 years. So if any of your panelists wants to pick up this question and some, is there a bubble in fintech? Very straightforward and very open.
I mean, I can quickly give my view, and I don't think there is a bubble in fintech. Honestly, I think we are finally able to value the scale fintech's opportunity is there in this country. And the large challenge had been, at least for the whole time before this time, was that while US fintechs were valued very highly because they could understand scale, India has a tremendous scale, and if you could just see the way our DMATs have grown and the extent to which possibilities of extending financial services still remain in such a large population, I think we are still undervaluing our fintechs, honestly. And to some extent, that is also because of a conservative notion about India as a market. But if you really do the math, in fact, when we started the company, at that point of time, we had valued our own market to be around 120 million. And we revised it a year ago, and we realized with all that is happening, it was 600 million. We did a very recent one, and we realized it is $2.4 billion. So I think what has been happening in India is that we are consistently undervaluing ourselves. Finally, I think we have reached some median, but to be honest, even I think these valuations are low because people don't believe so much in Indian startups the way, because of the exit possibilities, the way you would do in a US, because exit possibilities are numerous. But as the exit possibilities are increasing, you will see fair valuations coming to the fintechs, which I think will be fair, will be actually far higher than what we are even getting them today.
That's quite an amazing point. And when you mentioned exit possibilities from a investor standpoint, just wanted to bring a quick a point from the Sequoia fund, which has recently been started, where the whole idea is to let the VCs stay invested for a longer duration and not just through the fund cycle itself. Though that has not been launched in India, it has only been launched in the US. I'm pretty sure once Sequoia decides to come up with that sort of a model in India, it is going to revolutionize the whole VC landscape in India, and investors would definitely want to stay invested from a longer term perspective to build better and scalable businesses with the founders, and not just like chase behind with the next round of funding. So that's an amazing question.
Cool.
I see.
So 2 cents from me as well on this, Sumit. I think it is something, a lot of people sort of grapple with. Just to give you some sort of hints, there are the industry sort of 2019 or 2020 SIDBI Equifax report is, everybody should read it. It sort of talks about 4,000 crore digital loan book outstanding overall, right? And the entire Indian sort of loan book would be, I'm guessing, in lakhs of crores at least. And this is where we are in terms of digitization, if you can imagine, right? We are like sub 1%. Even the largest of the large NBFCs don't have more than a few percentage points in a digitized, all fully digitized loan book, right? And we're only touching like small ticket size unsecured loans through, say, app channels and all that. So I think digitization hasn't even started in the earnest. And frankly, we are at that inflection point where everything will come together, and this becomes earlier it was innovation, now it's becoming business as usual for all concerned, right? And my sense is, if the real numbers really do start showing up in in transaction values, in lending specifically, right, like it has started to show in UPI payments, the current valuations start to look meager, minuscule, and sort of not even in the ballpark of what is the value that is being created digitally, right? And my sense is either, my sense is current valuations are wrong. People could say that, okay, they are too high because it looks like a bubble, or it could be super low, because real impact hasn't really started. It hasn't been mainstreamed. Maybe if you can imagine, investments have recently been mainstreamed because of my mom invests using a couple of apps, so I'm guessing it's mainstream now. But my mom doesn't look at any kind of lending, or doesn't tell our maid to use cash flow management apps, etc. And I'm guessing that time is going to come, and once that it does come, this the current valuations will look like super small. And my sense is that is the correction that is needed, not on the downside.
That's quite an amazing point there. I guess there is still a lot of opportunities in lending and financial inclusion perspective from a tier 2, tier 3 areas as well within India, which are like adopting only bits and pieces of like financial service, and they are still yet to adopt other parts of financial services which already urban consumers have already adopted. So the market, I guess, market valuation will definitely correct, and we will see much higher valuations, much higher funding coming in. Definitely, the answer is there is no. And with that, I have one more question coming in on my personal channel. That is, how do you see SME digitization evolving in the next couple of years? What are the opportunities that are still unanswered when it comes to SME banking / SME digitization? And again, any one of you feel really has not been.
Cool. I think nothing is answered in SME banking.
So just to give you a specific example, I was just recently going through the one of my like Twitter feeds, and I saw one specific rant where a user actually struggled to get the funding amount from a angel investor who was like based out of India. So he was an NRI, but his bank account was outside India. They actually struggled to get that funding amount in their bank for close to 6 months, and even after that, the answer was that it's still somewhere stuck, and the bank does not know where it's stuck.
Hey Sumit, we're losing your voice a little bit.
Better now?
Yes, it's better.
Feel free to take up the question in terms of the opportunity of digitizing SME and SME.
Cool. So yeah, SMEs are one, they're not a monolith, right? So there are NSMEs, so nano, micro, mini, actual SMEs engaged in different kinds of things, different kinds of businesses with different kind of margins, with different kind of working capital requirements, with different kinds of customers. So some serve corporate, some serve other SMEs. Some are services businesses, some are retail businesses, right? So SMEs are like, they are a very rich sort of cut of the Indian whole. It represents India as a whole, and in all its diversity, right? So SMEs require many different products in financial services. They require different kinds of education. Some SMEs are, some sort of businesses are run by women, some businesses are run by men. Very different psyche. Some mix their money with their personal finances. A very few keep the money separate. So there's like a whole plethora. There is no cash management, there is no wealth management, there is no treasury like features. There are credit products are sort of totally broken. There is no secured lending. There are only a few product. Credit card penetrations on corporate cards is zero almost. So there's no personal finance management built for, so not personal, so business finance management that is intuitive for people to understand. A lot of it, of course, from lightweight MSME sort of startups has come in, but it's still lightweight, right? So everything, that you can imagine for an SME is open for grabs, right? And it's a huge market. It's just that we have to get out of our plush offices and leave our laptop behind and sort of go and talk to these, MSMEs to understand what are the problems that they are facing in their day-to-day lives. How do they make decisions about their business? How do they make decisions about, what to stock, how much to stock, what inventory to stock? Bunch of things, right? So it always feels, if you are sort of looking at it from like the news flow, so many MSME startups have gotten funded, what will I do, everything is done. It's just, it's that I think old adage where some scientist said that whatever was to be invented is already invented, and this is, I think, 100 years ago, right? So that's what it is. MSMEs and even consumer, but the MSME fintech space is wide open. It is a huge space. It has so much opportunity to build, and frankly, it is the time to build for these guys, right? MSMEs represent the largest chunk of the Indian GDP, the most underserved. Only local software vendors serve them. So there's a bunch of stuff, waiting for disruption, I would say. I don't use that word lightly, but the MSME space is ripe for disruption. Yeah.
And that's really interesting. I'm getting a lot of other questions, but this is an interesting question which I want. I think that will be the last question. And the question from Vijeta, and it is to Arpit. The question is, how will IoT shape fintech? That's
How will what?
interesting. We talked about a lot of different technologies in fintech. We never touched upon IoT in fintech. So how do you think IoT will shape up?
Yeah, I mean, no, I think a great question. I think IoT is already in works. Last time I was going through some of these hackathon problem statements, and I'm just giving example, and this is not inclusive, but one of the things that happens in SME loans, and especially corporate loans, is stock check, where a banker has to physically visit a site and actually check whether things are in place and stocks are in place. And I had seen a hackathon where people were saying that, can this be done through different mechanisms? Can it be done through drones? There is another problem statement, actually. In fact, I know a company which, in case of card loans, used to install a device in the car, which used to collect data and send it to the lender. Also was used for calculating the insurance on the driver, and this is happening globally also, where the way you're driving a car can determine the insurance premium that you might have to pay, and thus rewarding better drivers. And I think, I mean, these are just very limited things that I came across. I'm not an expert in IoT, honestly, but there are so many. Eventually, financing is done to devices, or is being done for objects. And I think IoT as a space is relevant, as all of us have been saying, that we are just as the surface, right? I think IoT is looking far away. Imagine in a bank, to open an account, you have to physically go where there's nothing physical. The account is virtual, payment is virtual, still you have to physically do things in a branch. So we are still very early, actually. But as digitization fully kicks in, banks do the basic stuff right. IoT would eventually get attached to any physical asset-based lending that you're doing, and you continue to do today. And there can be more possibilities, which at least I can't think of right now.
That's pretty interesting example, and I think Tesla already is doing IoT-based loans in their geography. They're testing out, and if that sort of model comes up, it will definitely revolutionize the whole like insurtech segment in India, which is definitely an extension to its segment. So and with that, I would like to actually conclude the panel discussions. I would actually don't want to take up any further time from the attendee standpoint, since considering the time we are already running almost 20 minutes beyond what we had scheduled for. So with that, I would like to thank all the panelists for joining us. Thank you so much, thanks Sanjeev, thanks Rajat for joining us today. Thank you so much for the attendees as well joining in, and we would like to wish all of you a very happy Diwali and a happy Dhanteras. And again, I've just put down the link to the program that which we already mentioned. So if any of the attendees are interested, just click on the link below, write us down to the email IDs mentioned, and we would love to see amazing global FinTechs come join us, and we would love to work with all the global FinTechs and help them come here, scale up in India. With that, thank you so much, and thank you so much.
Thank you guys.
Thank you so much,
for having
everyone.
us
Happy
over.
Diwali.
Happy Diwali to all of you.
Thanks, Rajat. Thanks, Sanjeev. Thanks, Arpit.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.